Good afternoon. Welcome back to Bowlesy's Forum with me, your host, Dom. And yes, guys, today, as you see in the thumbnail, we're going to be talking all things anxiety. But before we do, just again, another big thank you to absolutely every single one of you for tuning into the channel. So far, 3 weeks in, we have just hit 1k views. That is mental. So big up to absolutely every single one of you for sharing and watching the channel so far. My plea is, moving forward, could those of you who haven't please like and subscribe, because that would really boost my self-esteem. But anyway, let's get on with today's video, anxiety. And what I want to start with here is talking a little bit about what I find very, I want to say generic, but it's I guess something that most people I know struggle with, and something that I really have gone through the process of just trying to overcome, and that is social anxiety. What a weird thing social anxiety is. It's one of those things that you just can't quite put a finger on as to why your brain gets really triggered by it. But what I find is, I may even be going out to see my best mates before a night out, and I am shitting myself. Oh, fuck, I don't want to go see them. I do, but I don't. And it's kind of, you're just getting so worked up over this moment of seeing your mates. Why? You see them all the time. Why are you getting stressed about it? And that for me is a real frustration. I mean, my late teens, I really went through a period where I got so worked up about how I looked in front of my mates that I'd sometimes wash my hair like 3 times before I went out. Sorry? Yeah, that happened. I used to wash my hair 3 times before I went out. Idiot. I don't know why. Can't tell you why I was doing it. I didn't feel comfortable with the way I looked, and that was partly my self-esteem, but I was more worried about how other people would view me. And I found that came with my social stresses, and that lead up to a night, whether it's spontaneous or planned, I always find, get me a drink straight away, because that's the only way I kind of alleviate some of that stress. And I think some of that does come from the way our brains kind of function, because if you think about it, our brain picks up signals when we're out in public. And I guess sometimes it's that our brains are there to obviously protect us, and that's why we have our instincts, but they obviously pick up negative signals. And I think there are occasions where our brain may trick us a little bit and make us think into things a little bit more in depth than what they probably mean. And when I say that, and what I mean by that is, how many times do you go out and you think someone may be giving you the evils, or looking at you differently, or wanting to start on you, and it's just your brain just looking out for you, but you take that in differently, and you perceive that differently. And I find that is all linked with the negative signals that your brain's kind of producing to kind of cope with that. And it is strange, isn't it? I mean, I know it's a common thing, because I've spoken to a lot of people who do suffer with that social anxiety aspect. And I guess that's partly why, I certainly would tend to drink a lot at what you'd call your pre-drinks, because that kind of loosens me up for the night. It kind of makes me feel a little bit more at ease with myself. And the more I'm at ease with myself, the more I can kind of enjoy the night and not think about those social stresses per se. I think the way I describe anxiety and that social experience for me, because I do struggle with it anyway, then lead up to exams. Oh my word. And there's probably people, you guys watching this now, where how many times you have an exam like the next day, you're like, doesn't matter how much you fucking revise, you're still shitting yourself, because you're just like, well, I don't know what's coming up. Like, what is coming up? Who actually knows what the questions are going to be? Because you can do all the prep. You can do all the prep you want before that exam, but you don't know what's going to come on that first page. And the unknown is always a bit of a stress, isn't it? Like, we want to know what we're facing, and when you don't know what you're facing, there is a stress. It's like facing your fears, for example. I'm not terrified of heights, but I'll use it as my kind of example. And imagine being scared of heights and you're literally told you're skydiving. Imagine getting to the top of the plane and having to jump out that. You're like, no, fuck that. But you do it, don't you? Because you push yourself to do it. But you are terrified. You are literally on edge to a point where you could break down crying. And it's horrible. One of the things I have is my bugbear, and my real anxiousness comes with claustrophobia. It got worse since my injury, because I always like to know I'm protected from behind, and I've got some sort of I guess, cushion. So you may see me sometimes, I'm just like touching something behind me because it just makes you feel comfortable with something there. That's nice. But when you don't have that, it makes me a little bit anxious. And I get that same thing with claustrophobia. If I'm going to an Arsenal game, for example, like a lot of you know, I'm an Arsenal fan, family season ticket, and when we used to get the train up, we don't anymore, but when we get the train up, I used to find that environment really intense. It was just too much for me. It feels like everyone's kind of surrounding your headspace. And a lot of people go to me like, how do you get claustrophobia? You're like 27 foot tall. Like, how do you get claustrophobic up there? And it's strange. You kind of get in your own bubble, and it is just something that you can't describe with that anxiousness that you get. And it is the easiest way to kind of describe that anxiousness, and that feeling of tension is in the form of almost trying to face a fear. Like, imagine standing there at the front of a class and doing a speech. How many people like public speaking? Not many. I mean, I can do it through the grapevine, which I'd call my phone and this lens on my camera. But I struggle with that public speaking, believe it or not. And I do struggle to kind of make that eye contact. And it's difficult. Who likes public speaking? And I'd stand there at the front and I'd just freeze. But doing it behind, I know, a camera lens, that way, that works for me. I can do it because I can see what I'm doing. There's not a hesitation there. There's not a fear there. And there's not any of them negative signals that my brain's kind of programming. So that's refreshing. And that's a good way to kind of perceive it and recognise it for what it is. But yeah, as I was touching upon, I think social anxiety is the most common one. And it's something that I struggled with towards the back end of school, more so from memory, and kind of them early nights out. You first start going out and you feel like, oh, is this my scene? Is this not my scene? You're trying to figure out if you were fit in somewhere or not. But I just struggle with everyday anxiety, really. I don't really know what that's called. But mine kind of comes in the form of, imagine when you are late for something. You know, when you're rushing, when you're late. That's how I feel with anxiety. It's like you are on eggshells and you are just running at 1,000,000 miles per hour. And what I mentioned previously with like my PTSD video, and one of the things that I do to kind of support myself is when I can see it for what it is. And I was talking about that a little bit earlier, was about having stuff at face value, being able to see it. And that's why I really like mind mapping, because that also helps me alleviate some of that stress, some of that tension. And it is honestly, if I wake up a little bit late, I'm literally fucked for the day, because I'm playing catch up all day. I'm always chasing myself. Well, that's how it feels. You may not be able to visualize that, but that's how it feels, that you're always chasing yourself. And that's what anxiety is like. It's like running at 1,000,000 miles per hour, but you can't just concentrate on one thing. It's like if you give someone task after task after task after task to do, my brain would see that and be like, fuck, I'm trying to prioritise one of the tasks, but I don't know what's more important because you're just giving me so much and I can't fucking think about it. Like, that's what it's like, because you're trying to take on too much at once and just taking baby steps. And that's kind of me generalising my anxiety. And the social aspect of it, because that is challenging, and I think that is one that we all have a tendency to do. And those of you going to university or have just left school and you're watching this and you're kind of going through that anxious period now, just try and sometimes take a step back and just see some of your behaviours and see if there's anything that you can kind of adapt. A big one for me was like always being on my phone. I shit you not, how many times would I sit there at a bar just almost act like someone's messaged me on my phone? They may well have, but not always. Sometimes I'll just be scrolling through Twitter or something, just doing something just to keep my brain stimulated, make it look like I'm not a loser on my own. Do you know what I mean? Just to kind of prevent that cushion of people thinking, oh, he's on his own over there, look at him. And then there's me like shitting myself, just going, Twitter, Instagram, yep. But that's how my brain would process it, because I'll be worried about how other people would view me. So my kind of take on that was to get my phone out and just, scrolling away. That was what I do. And it's strange, isn't it? Like, that was the first behaviour I picked up on. And then what I started doing was I started putting my phone on airplane mode before a night out. And then I realised, you know what? Start looking at it less and less and less. Obviously, you have to take your phone out because it's important. Someone may get in trouble, you may get in trouble, you need to contact your parents, so on and so forth. So I always take it out, but now I tend to put it on airplane mode just to prevent myself from looking at it. And you know what that does, which I really enjoy? I can actually enjoy the night. how many times do you as groups, or you as an individual, go out in a group and you sit there with your mates and you're all at a table, you've got your pint, and everyone's on their fucking phone? Socialise. What are we doing? It stresses me out, seriously. And I do think that is something that has just been adapted over time, and that makes me anxious. Like, you're having a conversation in a group and everyone's on their phone. It's like, I'm talking, but is anyone actually listening to me? And I hate that. It's like I'm just talking to a wall. Well, that's good then, isn't it? Cheers, guys. Cheers. That's what it feels like, doesn't it? It just such a null and void situation. It's just fuck off. And that's what I find as such an annoyance. But yeah, for me, the techniques to kind of get over anxiety is very challenging. I think the start of it is kind of acknowledging that your nerves are something that everyone has, but it's how you kind of manage your nerves, I suppose. I think for me, the most common source of my anxiety, which is noticeable, does come in the form of social. And outside of that, it's probably when I take on too much at once and I'm struggling to kind of pinpoint what is the biggest priority, what do I need to put most of my energy in first, and then work my way down. And like PTSD and like other forms of depression, I find the best thing to do always is to separate things and see it for what it is, clearly from a third person perspective. So maybe sitting down with someone and talking things through, or mind mapping. That is a key. That is such a fucking beautiful thing. Mind mapping, that right there. Whoever thought of mind mapping, right? I don't know who made up mind mapping. Whoever did, kudos to you, mate. Kudos to you, because it's a game changer. It's a game changer. But yeah, seriously, I find that is kind of the best thing when you can separate something from what it is. And that does support my anxiety. Social anxiety, I think that is something that you just have to... I think you have to trick your brain. And when I say that, it's because your brain does pick up signals, right? And it does make you think about how people may perceive you. If you can trick your brain and get yourself into a thought process of, I don't give a shit what people think about me. Obviously not to that extent, but you can kind of cross out and close off certain people and behaviours. I now go out and I've got myself programmed in the position where I can solely focus on the people I'm going out with, and I'm not really too interested in what's outside of my group. And by doing that, I then don't have this fear of, fuck, what do they think of me? Shit, what do they think of me? Fuck. I'm kind of just looking all over the place like I've got some fucking disease. But no, in all seriousness, it does help. And being able to block that out, and being able to just put my energy into the people I've gone out with, that really helps my social anxiety. And with regards to having too many things come onto me at once, again, separation. And that's the key. I mentioned briefly earlier when I'm late for something, that's when I'm nervous. I think that's something that you can't change. It's just make sure you're not late. Sometimes you can't be helped. Sometimes it can. I jokingly now tell myself lateness is greatness. Is it though? It's not really, is it? But I try to have a laugh with it if I'm late, because I know, well, I try and calm myself down. Don't laugh, you'll cry. So try and make a joke of the situation and just relax about it. Obviously, if you're late to work and your employer's not going to want you to go up there and say, why are you late? Well, you know what, mate? Lateness is greatness. No, don't ever do that, because that's not a good thing to do. But what I'm trying to get at is have a laugh at yourself and try and relieve some of that stress, because, as I said, if you don't laugh, you cry. And I always think of it as your head and your brain and everything that goes on inside your body is like a sponge. It's a sponge, and when it fills up with too much stress, too much aggro, you need to just have a release. And then you have a release, that's when you cry, and that's when you sweat, and that's when everything kind of comes out, and that's when you can start again. And I find that's most important. So yeah, obviously this video is a little bit less in depth. I wanted to get it out just to kind of liven up the mood, because my last few videos have been quite deep, and I obviously want to support all of you, but I also want it to be a little bit more, I suppose, more me, because I am quite a lively character, as many as you know, and I want to demonstrate that. So yeah, future videos, drop your comments below, because I will be looking at them. And with regards to what's coming up next in the podcast, I have got a couple more guests lined up, but I'm just sorting out times and dates, and we'll get a few more. Ideally, I will eventually find myself in a situation where I'll either have a studio or probably invest in a new camera. Haven't decided yet, give or take. But that's kind of the process. That's kind of what we got. I'm also looking at doing a series called Cooking with Bowlesy. If that's something you'd like to see, I'll run a poll on Instagram, and we'll see what happens there. So make sure you follow my Instagram, which is in the link in the description, and you can vote for if Cooking with Bowlesy is something you want to see, because yeah, we could have a real laugh there, my word. But yes, guys, thank you again for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed today's video. We've tried to make it a little bit more fun, but yeah, if there's things in there that you can take away and it will support you moving forward, fantastic, I did my job. But if not, apologies, I wasted your time, sorry. But anyway, big up to every single one of you once again for tuning in, and I'll see you for the next video.